Okay, we're recording. So I figured, I was going to let you see a couple things. So before I went to the warehouse and I picked up all these bins here. You can see there's a whole bunch of bins here. And a couple more bins right here with old Tascam 688s. These are old mixers. And so this is when I tell people I wrote, 5,000 songs, probably more than that actually. They all used to be done on these little cassettes, So these are all these different songs, and each cassette in here is full of different songs. There's Time Has Come, So Hold On. There's a whole bunch of songs in here, instrumental guitar stuff, and Pink Floyd type song, Pop Clean, I Don't Know Music, a bluesy rock song, More Than a Million, Killer Pop Tune in E major, Trapped by Me. These are all these songs, and they were dated this one's July 14, 1993. And what I would do is I would put a cassette tape into one of these 8 tracks over here, and then what would happen is I would then, it was December 11th, 1992, and so I would write these. It says a great chorus with songs, a funky tune made up, ideas, rock song. These are just a bunch of songs that I would write, Here's when I wrote Merry Christmas in Chicago. Funky stuff, more funky stuff, power pop song, Turn Me On. That was November 17, 1991. So that's, when I was starting to record and do different stuff. There's July 3rd, 1992. I'd fill this cassette July 3rd, 1992, and then after I'd fill and write 3-4 songs, and the next cassette would be called July 6th or whatever, and it would just be all these are songs. So these are all just songs. This whole thing, and all these are full of songs. So there's about 5,000 or so songs I've written music beds to. Here's G sharp minor, B major sequence song, ballad in C, written in August of 99. Here's September 1st, 1993. Here's a piano song. And I would just write tons of songs, Here's, November 11th, 1991, Come Together, a shuffle tune, jazzy feels, straight rock and roll. So these are all these songs, So that's how I would write, songs on these cassettes. That's how I used to record, is on these little 8-track cassettes. In fact, let me show you. So I figured I'd also let you see some discs. So back in the day, I only owned one keyboard. And I would go to Soundpost in Mount Prospect. I would go to Guitar Center, Roselle Music. I would go to Guitar Shack. Guitar Shack really didn't have much keyboards though. So I'd go to these different music stores, and I would sit down with a sampler, and I'd hook up other keyboards, and I would sample them, which are like mini recordings of each one of those keyboards. So as you can see, all these different keyboards, like these discs, are all what I wrote our songs with the exception of these ones that are here that are done by the factory. All these other ones I had to create the sounds myself and code them. So, for example, we have a song called One and Only, and this would be the disc, and we would get to a show, and I'd have to load it into a disc and load the samples. And most of the samples at that time, we didn't have any backing vocals on there. It was all just samples of brass music, strings, stuff like that. And these are all just Man Behind the Mask. These are all songs of ours. Will You Be My Lady? Who Do You Think Of? These are just songs. Rhythm Man, Where Is One? Another Night in the City. So these are just electric eyes. This is a cool tune. That's the vocoder. She's got electric. I don't know the samples of George Bush and the intro of them from the Iraq War. That's what we had wrote that song about world peace, which is probably still relevant today. But all these samples we would load, and I would create all these samples. And so I would go to the music store, and like here, perfect example, I go to the Ensoniq, and I'd take the Ensoniq SD1 and sample that, and it'd be vocoder and all these sounds. There's thousands of discs here. Let me get this straight. There's thousands of discs here. They have a lot of sounds on them. There's tons and tons and tons of sounds. Sonic TS10 had a thing like Led Zeppelin drums. Here's all the original cassettes from Jesus Christ Superstar when I did it in, that'd be 1993, 94, around that time. Dino Manzella, our sound guy, and my cousin, he had sang Jesus Christ Superstar at the Hemmons Auditorium in Elgin, and they needed a string section. They asked, could we can't hire a string section? Could Richie, could I sequence the string sections? And so I did. And then Dino's like, you mind if we record it? We did. Dino put it online, and people started freaking out when they heard it. And then a company called Trumpet in the Land in Ohio, which still exists today, I believe. They kind of do outdoor theater stuff, kind of like Red Rock in Colorado. This is like an outdoor theater. I recorded the entire musical, and it was kind of crazy because when I did, I didn't know it had as many songs as it did. It was kind of pretty complex. So that's the way I originally had recorded it on a cassette, which was all done on the Tascam 688. The 688 is an 8-track cassette, and how it works. A typical cassette, when you have a typical cassette that you have in your car, this would be a side 1 left and right, and side 2 left and right, which would give you 4 tracks. And the 688 took the head and staggered them, and was able to make the track really thin so that you can split them and have 8 tracks, and then you put them all going in one direction. It's very unique to do that, and tape has issues, and that's why people don't use it anymore. As you would record multiple times, the tape would degrade away and it's made mostly of rust particles and the magnetics, and if it goes over through all the mechanics inside the head, it would start eating away the tape. So people started getting away from this. This unit was how I recorded almost all the Seventh Heaven stuff from maybe 1990 through 1996, 7, 8, right around that time. And around that time I started getting better stuff. But all of our old original demos and everything were done on this thing, which was pretty complex because it used the matrix system. So back in the day, we would have to do certain things with this. We were limited to 8 tracks, and so the trick to how I used to use this machine was I would put a drum machine down for the tempo to get the timing, and then either a keyboard or a guitar for pitch, and then Nick and Tony and I would come in and record vocal, and then bounce those tracks down to 8, and then we would come back and record vocal, record that down to 7, then record vocal, and record that to 6, and then vocal, record that to 5, and then I would take these 2 and bounce them back over to 3 and 4, take those and add more vocals and bounce them down, and kind of tricky how to do that. And sometimes I would go through and even put the vocal on 7 and stereoize that track, use 8 for MIDI, sequence MIDI to the ASR10, and then I would always have my drums, a bass, guitar, solo, lead vocal, backup vocal, MIDI for keyboard. And that's how I'd mix almost all of our stuff for Seventh Heaven back in the day. And this unit was pretty good. What's even crazier about that is I have that one and the other 2 that I just showed you out there. When I sold people, when I worked at Guitar Center in 1994, I sold people the Tascam 688, and I sold them the Sonic ASR10. And I told them if they ever wanted to get rid of it, I would buy it back from them if they ever wanted to sell it. So the ones that I own are ones that I had sold to other people, which is kind of crazy. I figured I'd show you some of this stuff because I'm about to put it all away because it's just a big mess, and I want to get the mess cleared out of my off my counter here. This since we record everything here, and I did everything on the ASR10. Back in the day, I'd record take all the sounds in there, and they would all get recorded into an ASR10. That's an ASR10. This one's is a part because I have to fix one of the buttons in it. But that one over there is an ASR10 and a Sonic ASR10 sampler. And everything had to fit within 16 megs, which was pretty crazy considering that I got all the strings, the brass, the percussion, the bass, the piano, the organs, and the drums, all to fit on 16 megs. Bounced them down onto cassette and then recorded guitars on them, and then I recorded them all and then put them all done in what's called a DAT, which is a way you'd master a record back in the day. Most people don't even know that. I have reels and reels, but those are at the warehouse. Reels are another way that we would record when we go in the studios, the bigger studios. When I went back and pulled up all the old stuff, I had to come in here. And I had to put everything now linearly down. So let me see if I can get it where you can see. But you can see on here, this is coming in, and it's 1/8 for 7 bars at 96. Then we're going to 5/8 time signature into 2 bars at 93, dropping tempo. The end is at 22 bars at 73. And then we're going to 15/8 at 93, 5/8, 10/8, 2/4, 2/4, 7/8. And this is just kind of showing how the different, for one song in Jesus Christ Superstar, not only the different time signatures, but also the different tempos that would be coming in. And that doesn't even show the keys and the styles, which is completely crazy. I mean, the Jesus Christ Superstar is like a little mini masterpiece. Like you look at this one, you're going, 1 bar 8/73, and then you're going to 3/4 for 4 bars at 76, 1 bar of 1/8. It's 7 of them at 118, 3/4 2 at 98, 11/4 1 98, 6/4 1. I mean, you get the kind of the gist. This, putting up all these different things and having to write it all out took me a decent amount of time, and then it worked out really well. So yeah, I'll walk you around a little bit in the studio to show you kind of some of the stuff I've got going on in here. So I've got a lot of these little guitar processors. It's a bunch of them. I buy a whole boatload of them because I'm trying to find which ones travel well, which processors work well on the cruise ships when we go on them. These are all old lyrics. This is just old lyrics that were written for Seventh Heaven. Some of them, who knows how many were there, but these were all just a whole book of just lyrics that I would write and show them to Tony, and Tony would take my ideas and turn them into other songs. And here's I Can't Find Love. I wrote that song, I remember. Tony made some adjustments to my words, but that song I Can't Find Love, I wrote it about a girl that I was dating, and pretty cool. Alright, I'm walking through the studio a little bit, running everything on a 2020 Mac Pro. You're seeing like a Line 6, an ADA, a Rockman, some other little processor, DP4, old and Sonic, Marshall, a Triax, Mesa Boogie. So I don't really use those too much. I use everything in the synth. I bought a couple of these new ones. I've got a Helix and a Fractal. Both are really good. Don't use it too much. Then I've got an old original Rockman, a Marshall Pre, a Soldano, Roland Integra, which has like a whole boatload of sounds from Roland in them. There's a Virus Rack, Avid's I.O., and a Pre, and an Avalon. Avalon Pre. A little controller that I'm using on Native Instruments. I have a whole bunch of guitars and keyboards. Most of the guitars are mostly just for collecting. This here is an amp room. just a bunch of different amps that I use. Majority of my stuff is coming off the Soldano. Soldano is my main guitar. I use it live, and then I have this one here that I use in the studio. Besides, I also use a bunch of soft plugins, amp plugins that are inside the computer. There's a, see what else we got here, Avid 11, and there's a couple little things going on for effects. It's old Randall, I haven't even used it, old Mesa Boogie, and Eddie Van Halen. This is a great amp, this 5150 Eddie Van Halen. This little Mesa Boogie Transatlantic. That's an old Fender Super Champ that Rivera made. This old GK slash Marshall, Nader, Trace Elliott, the Marshall. There's a Kemper, some more I.O. I'll walk you through the keyboards I have. There's an Sonic ASR 10. I use that for a majority of Seventh Heaven stuff for a majority of the years. It's a sampler sequencer. There's one here I got to take apart and fix a couple switches within it, and that's going to take me a while. This is just a sampler sequencer. So like you would sample a sound and it would be like, hello, 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 kind of thing, and little mini recordings, and you're bringing those back in and you put them in a sequence, and that's how you make beats. And a lot of hip hop guys like this keyboard because it's a sampler sequencer. This is an Ovation Supernova 2, which is like a vectorizing synth. It's a little unique in the characteristics of how it sounds, almost like a lot of envelope filter kind of attacks, and these knobs all control what the sound does. This Nordwave is probably one of my favorite little keyboards. I use a ton of this in the last few years on Seventh Heaven stuff. It's got just great synthy patches within it, and I think it's got just a great Euro sound to it. And the Jupiter 80, this one in particular actually came from Prince. This was at Paisley Park Studios. It was Prince's keyboard. He had used it for a little while, and then he didn't want to send it back, or actually sent it to me. So I get my buddy Danny Kent from Roland had said, you don't care if Prince sends you a keyboard. I'm like, no, not a problem. So this actually came from Prince. This is an Access Virus keyboard, very much of a synthy, sawtooth synth, sine tooth synth, very synth. Known to have a very fat sound to it. This Novation Ultra Nova, great sounds in that. The Korg Chronos, another great keyboard. You have the Yamaha Montage, that's a great keyboard as well. These keyboards here all kind of do like PCM-based samples. They're just recalling little mini recordings and playing little sounds. This is just another controller. This Korg Karma here, I use this on a majority of Silver. Our Seventh Heaven Silver record was done with a Korg Karma. There's a particular string that I really like that's inside this keyboard. I still use it to this day, and I can't find a sound that I like that's better than it. So in pop rock music, and I use in some dance, I use a specific string coming out of the Korg Karma. Roland V synth, I don't use too much. It's probably one of my least used pieces in the studio. Nord Lead 3. I like the Nord Wave much better than the Lead 3. This is a brand new Roland Phantom. I turned it on once. I haven't even played with it. Usually why I wait, because once I plug it in, I start going through patches, I end up writing songs. So usually when I would get a keyboard, I would write a good 50 to 100 songs off of one keyboard to come through, and I'd hear like a piano patch, like, oh, that's a really cool piano sound, and then I would start writing a whole song around it, and then I'm about an hour in and the song's done. So that's what was something that, like, keyboards have inspired me a lot to write songs. So this is a really cool keyboard. The M3, which is a newer version of the Korg M1. This is in Sonic TS10, which is similar to the ASR 10, but has like some pre patches in there. This is an Oberheim OB12, which is it's a old school kind of synth waveforms, and this is you're gonna shape the sound with waveform on here. This is a little Venom I picked up. I use this on some of Pop Media. I use that keyboard a lot on Pop Media. This is the Roland kit that Mike plays on our records, and it's Mike plays on everything on the kit, and then what happens is we record everything MIDI, and then I can recall the sounds in TuneTracks. I use TuneTrack mostly. Great software. If you're into doing studio sounds for drums, TuneTrack has got it down.
awesome, and they have a great installer as well. Most of these guitars are all custom shop Fender Showmasters that I play. This particular one is the same exact one I play live. This is just the other one I bring on the cruise. I just like the way they play. They have locking tuners, rollerball nuts, so the strings roll and they don't get stuck. Most of this stuff is all, 80s guitar stuff. I grew up in the 80s liking bands, so the Warren DeMartini Rad is my favorite guitar player. You got Eddie Van Halen, unbelievable guitar player. Warren DeMartini again. Motley Crue, that's the Theater Pain record. That's George Lynch of Dawkins. That also is a Dawkins one as well. There's Akira Takasaki from Loudness. There's a Godin. I saw Brian McKnight play a Godin on Jay Leno, and I'm like, I need to get a Godin. Taylor and Takamine. Let's see, there's a Martin. There's a couple of 12-string Washburn. There's another George Lynch, PRS. A couple Kramer Night Swans. Those were I played these guitars for years and loved them. This Ibanez as well. From like 88 through 90, maybe 2, I played these guitars. They were my main guitars. Def Leppard's, I saw that guitar on the cover of a magazine, and I'm like, I need to get that guitar. And that's actually, ironically, the day that I decided that was going to do what I was going to do the rest of my life. That is... it's Phil Collins from the Def Leppard Photograph video. Another Showmaster. My buddy Fred Bartoli airbrushed this for me. Did a great job. In high school, we would go on lunch and we'd go back over and see how the progress was. And Fred did that for me. Another Showmaster. This guitar was originally painted and it got ruined, and then my buddy Tony Keys oil painted that. No, Tony was our first band manager of the band and did a great job. It's a Silver Burst, a Les Paul. Nick had liked it so much I ended up buying him one for being in the band a million years. This is another Gibson. This is a Les Paul Supreme, really nice guitar. Needs to be intonated. Fender P-Bass. Then there's another Fender Showmaster. There's a ESP. This Fender Jazz Bass. Most of the Seventh Heaven records have this P-Bass on there. It's either the Jazz Bass. It's either the P-Bass or the Jazz Bass. I think the Fender bass just has a nice round sound to it. This Gibson, that's a majority of our rhythm tracks on a lot of Seventh Heaven records have been on this guitar. Old, heavy Gibson Les Paul. I could never play this guitar live because it would just beat my back up. And then all the clean stuff, a lot of it's coming off of this Fender Deluxe Strat. So that's the majority of stuff that I play all the records with. Occasionally I'll do something with this Tele. And then the guy who made all those 80s guitars, named Dan Lawrence, had also made me a guitar for Seventh Heaven off of our Pop Media record, and he did a really, really, really good job. And so if you see our Pop Media record, that's it on a guitar. I don't play it out live because I don't want to get beaten up. Well, my desk is filled with my old Mac that I did all of. I did Faces, Time Replaces, Media Overkill, and Silver on. In fact, I also did USA UK on this, and Synergy. And then I started coming up to this computer, this Mac Pro, this little cylinder, and did everything like Spectrum, onto everything for the last few years. And then now I'm working on this Mac Pro. Here's a Parker. I'm endorsed by Parker. They sent me this guitar. It's a really, really cool guitar. Right now I'm working on a track for our next Seventh Heaven record. So this is Pro Tools, and what you're seeing here is all these different faders are different instruments and sounds and things, and if you're not even able to see it all, because if I scroll, you'll be able to see I have more tracks going on over here. And when I write songs, I usually, all these here are what you're seeing here, all the different waveforms and parts. I usually write and put more into the song, and sometimes I subtract from the mix if do I think this other guitar part is needed or not. And I write a multitude of different parts different guitar parts and different keyboard parts. See, for this guitar, this song is little pop tune. See. So what you're seeing on the keyboard, like here, you know. So you might use different keyboards. It's just a straight grand. So all the guitar parts. So all, you know, obviously it's a verse, and so that's kind of how I write, and then I give that to Adam. I usually, down here, I have other vocal lines of things of me singing on them, but I usually don't give that to a singer. I want the singer, or who I'm writing the song with, I want to hear what they have, their interpretation, what they have to say about it, you know? Let's see. Of course. So, you know, that gives you a kind of a little glimpse of where I work every day, and well, and how we make our records. I gotta get working on this Pop Medley 5. I gotta get back to that. I'm gonna put up some videos of that as well. And yeah, we'll see you soon.